Hello, everyone. My name is Myra Quick, and I am the owner of a business called Fast Forward Learning and Development. And I have done a couple of different things with the Mass LGBT Chamber. And I was thrilled when Jamie called me and asked or contacted me and asked me to do this session on working a job fair because I understand that you have a big one coming up. And so this is all about it's not about all the things that go into applying for work. It's how to actually work a job fair because it is so critical. If you're going to take your time to go to a job fair, you need to make sure that you are getting the most out of the time that you're there, right? Because you're going to have to get dressed and you're going to have to show up, and it's going to be a whole lot. So I want you to know I worked in human resources for over 25 years. And I have gone to a lot of job fairs, and there are certain things that happen between a participant and an employer that make a difference in how well I can remember who I saw. Because I'm going to see a lot of people that day. Here's some interesting information. So take a look at this. This job fair coming up has 30 employers. They're expecting 350 job seekers. So just let those numbers roll around in your head for a minute, and you're going to have to ask yourself, so how do I stand out? And there are a couple of things that you can do in order to stand out because, like I said, you don't want to show up and not get the most bang for your buck. So, the first thing you need to do is start working now. So, today is Wednesday, and this job fair happens on Monday. So, you should be able to see the employers that are going to be at the job fair on Monday. You should have access to that information. And so, what you want to do is go through that list, and you want to be selective initially. You don't want to limit yourself to businesses that have jobs that you've necessarily done in the past. You don't have to do that. What you need to do is figure out who are the five most important companies you want to see. And then you're going to go out and do some research on them. And so the first thing you want to do is go out and pull up their website, obviously, read about their history, find out any recent news because when you are going into this job fair, you're not just going there to drop off a resume, you're going to start a relationship with someone. And so having access to their recent news and something that's important would be a great icebreaker, right? A great way for you to get to have something to talk to them about. You also want to look at their openings and review the openings that are of interest to you and read them thoroughly and write down any questions that you might have about what's not covered in that ad, right? What do you not see out there that you're interested in? Um, then you want to take a look at the company culture. Now, I have firsthand experience in company culture where what they show you on the website is not necessarily who they are when you get in front of them, right? So you want to take a look at their the culture that they profess to have and the work value proposition that they are making to applicants. And then when you actually meet with these people, you're going to see if that rings true. For instance, if they tell you that they are friendly and open and honest, and yet you show up and the person that's representing them at that job fair is anything besides open and pleasant, right? They're shut down, they're grumpy, they're not talking to you, they're not interacting with you. So, what they're professing on that website might not necessarily ring true. And so, pay attention to those things and the work value proposition. What are you exchanging your time for? And so if you are exchanging your time for a culture that says they value innovation, then that's something that you want to make sure that you ask about whenever you're in front of this person. And keep in mind, the person that shows up at the job fair probably is not going to be the person that's going to manage the position that you are applying for. And sometimes they might not even be the recruiter. So the bigger the company, the more chances you have that who you're going to actually meet is going to be an admin or an assistant of some sort in the HR department. So it's okay to ask them, hi, who are you and what's your title, and get the information, right? Who are you speaking to? Because you're not going to want to ask them a bunch of specific questions to the position if they are not the person who oversees that position, because they'll know about as much as you know based on the job description that you saw or the ad that was out there. Then you want to take a look at social media. So go check out their company on social media. And so the first place you want to go is LinkedIn. The bigger companies should all have a LinkedIn account. A lot of these companies that are being represented on Monday are larger companies. And so they'll have a LinkedIn account. But the other thing that you can do, you can search for the employees that work at that company through LinkedIn. And you can actually find out who the HR person is. You might even be able to find out who the manager of that particular department is. And boy, wouldn't that be helpful information to have, right? Years ago, we didn't have that when we were applying. We were just applying blind. We walked in, handed them a resume, had no idea who we were talking to or if we'd ever see them again. The This is important for you to understand is you have the opportunity to get ahead of the game before you ever show up. And that is by going in, doing the research, checking out the jobs that are available, pick the one that you are most interested in and apply to it. Because your goal is to have your name in front of them a minimum of 3 times. Because if there are 350 applicants and 100 of them decided to apply to that job, you're just one name in 100. So you want to increase your visibility, and I'm going to tell you more ways to do that. But your first stop is an electronic application. And so, not only that, but once you've applied to the role, you now have a lead in to the person that you're speaking to. I noticed that you were hiring for XYZ, and I actually applied to that online. I am going to give you a hard copy of my resume in case for some reason you haven't been able to access my online documents. So now you're going to take printed resumes with you. And so now you've got your name in their database, hopefully. You've got your resume in front of them with your name on it. So now you've got 2 times that they're going to see your name. And you just introduced yourself, right? So now you've got them 3 times. I'm going to give you even more ideas to get your name in front of them more often. So the other thing is plan your attire. And doesn't mean you necessarily have to show up in a suit jacket and a tie or dress and heels. Dress appropriate for the position that you are going to apply for. And we'll talk about that in a minute because we are actually going to talk about a real job that exists out there. And so when you're planning your attire, you want to be neat, clean, make sure everything's pressed, not wrinkled, appropriate shoes, and just be yourself, but make sure that you are presentable and you are the image of the person that they would want to hire. Application and cover letter. Let's talk briefly about that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I'm sure you have gone through having your application or your resume looked at, and you've probably heard more about cover letters than you care to. But a couple of things that I want you to pay attention to. So, update your resume. Make sure it's engaging because if it's just a laundry list of responsible for blah 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 blah, It's very hard to read. And so if I'm faced with reading 50 of them, I want some sort of engaging information included in there, but don't make it lengthy because I do have to read it. I am not the applicant tracking system. And the applicant tracking system, which a lot of the larger companies will have, the applicant's tracking system will be looking for those keywords and pulling your information based or your resume based on the number of matching hits that it finds. So when you are looking at your resume and you're looking at the ad, make sure whatever words are in there for the ad, the keywords, you want to make sure you have those in your resume. Use a simple format. If you are applying for something like a graphic designer, save that beautiful graphic design resume for in person. So, if you are going to the job fair and you are going to be applying for a graphic design position, take that pretty copy with you because that's a sample of your work. However, when you are applying online, keep the format very simple, clean. Don't use any bizarre fonts. Make sure that uh, when you start putting information into text boxes, the applicant tracking system is like, I have no idea where I'm supposed to look next, and it can actually prevent you from being an applicant in their system. So keep a very simple format, no pictures, no graphics, just the facts, man. And then include your social tags. A lot of people don't do this. And if you, like me, are big on LinkedIn, I always include that in there. I'm not huge on Instagram, so I don't put it out there. But if you're applying to a graphic design job, I bet you are. So you want that out there. Make sure that whatever social tags you put, you realize they're going to look at. And so you want everything out there to be appropriate, right? Custom cover letters explain why you're interested in this job, what are your unique qualifications, and you can also address any possible questions. For instance, if there's a gap in your employment. So, if there's a gap in your employment and during that time you were not only looking for work, but you were also um, taking a course or improving your skills in Excel or whatever you were doing, you can put that in there because it helps them to understand. And then the tip of remember me in three, like I said, you want your name in front of them at least three times. So don't include your street address or attendance dates in your resume. And street address just isn't necessary for them to have it because they will ask it on the application. So you don't have to put it on your resume. The attendance dates can, in fact, bring up issues of age discrimination. So you don't really need to put them in there. Use AI for your cover letter, but make sure that you don't just shove out the AI version. You want it to reflect your personality because sooner or later you're going to have to write something for that company. And if the way you write doesn't match the cover letter, they're going to realize pretty quickly that that wasn't you that wrote it. And the thing about cover letters is oftentimes you'll have a service create a resume, but most times individuals will create a cover letter. And because you are going to make each cover letter specific to the position that you are applying for, it's important for you to go in and not just have a generic cover letter because it will show a lack of interest. And don't include photos or graphics in your resume because the applicant tracking system is going to just shut it down. So, resigned at the beginning of the month from a toxic job for my mental health. I am nervous about how to address my employment gap. Any recommendations? Sure. As far as resigning from a position, uh, it's okay to say, I decided to leave my last position based on personal needs and I am pursuing, and then immediately switch to I am pursuing a role in blah, blah, blah. Okay, so don't just leave it hanging there because if you leave it just as that, you will end up with with them wanting to ask way more questions. And they really don't need to know that it was a toxic job, um, just that you chose to leave for personal reasons. Uh, can a job ask you why they won't hire you? Can a job, I'm confused by that. Are you asking, can a job seeker ask why you weren't hired? I'm confused by the question. Um, if you're talking about a reference check, they can ask anything they want to. What is shared is up to the company that they're contacting. All right. So that's a little bit about the pre-work that you need to do, your resume and cover letter, and some of the do's and don'ts. So now we've got you up to the point which is you're getting ready to go to the job. So, job fair. So, let's talk about if you read the ad. I'm a big baseball fan. And so, job fairs are not a spectator sport. You can't just roll up and throw out resumes and expect that anybody's going to call you back because it's not going to happen. So, I have pulled a position offline that I thought might be interesting. And so, it's a security person for a major league baseball team. So here's your work history. You've been a retail store manager. You have also had experience at campus security when you were in college. And you are huge into baseball, and you actually coached a town rec league, baseball rec league, for a couple of years. All right. So I'm going to give you the position as it is out there. So, we are seeking candidates to work in a daytime non game event security role for daily operations and private events. In addition to the daily shifts and private events, staff must also be able to work weekend games and concerts. So then the responsibilities say ensure the safety and security of all people entering, screen all guests with the use of a metal detection um, with metal detection and compliance with Major League Baseball, thoroughly search all bags or parcels, ensure proper access control to the stadium by checking all credentials, provide excellent customer service, remember that, by interacting with fans and guests in a friendly, polite manner, be observant and proactive to identify disruptive behavior, document incidents and obtain witness information if necessary, respond to emergencies, and comply with all Major League Baseball policies as well as city, state, and federal laws. Okay. So listen to this next piece because I am huge on instructing individuals about workplace competencies. Those are the things that are not the specific work items, such as scanning all bags, right? It's the things that will make you successful while you're scanning those bags. So, prior customer service experience is required. Prior security experience is preferred, but it's not necessary and must be available for 2 weekends during the month, blah, 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 and all the dates and times. Willingness to work weekends. So notice the word willingness. And strong interpersonal and communication skills. And then it has a thing in here about age requirements. So you have retail store manager experience. That brings you excellent customer service skills. You have previous campus security experience, which already puts you head and shoulders above anyone who has no experience in security, even though it was campus security. It doesn't have to be the exact same um, role that they are looking for that you have performed before. And then an interest in their industry, and their industry is baseball, and you were a coach for the town rec department for a couple of years. So now you have some really good talking points when you show up at this job fair, right? Some things that, while you may have said, I'm a retail store manager, they're looking for somebody for campus security, or for ballpark security, that's not me. But actually, it is you. And it's not only you, but you could be one of the top candidates for that. I can send along this presentation. It's not that big. I'll be happy to pass it along to Jamie. So, attendance. Job fairs are a 5-minute mini interview opportunity. So, when I told you originally you wanted to figure out the top 5 companies that you wanted to get in and see, you have about 8 seconds with each of those to make an instant connection. And you do that through an elevator pitch. Elevator pitch sounds so difficult, but here's how it goes. So I'm the person who was the retail manager, and I love the town rec, and I have campus security. So I go up. I walk up to the Major League Baseball table. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Myra. And I was out on your website and I noticed that you have a position open for campus for security in your ballpark. And I have worked retail previously, so I have a lot of customer service experience in dealing with irate people sometimes. And I also have coached rec baseball for a couple of years, and I worked campus security when I was in college. So I have some skills that I think might be very helpful for your organization. So now in those few seconds, you have already stood out to this person and you're handing them your resume at the same time because you want them to, now you got their interest peaked. Now they're going to actually look at that resume, right? They're going to say, oh, where did they work? What were they doing? You're going to smile and make eye contact. And you want to highlight your critical skills. So we covered the customer service skills that they were looking for, right? We covered the fact that you have an interest in their industry, and we covered the fact that you actually have security experience. Then you want to ask them some questions. And those questions might be something like, so do I appear on the surface, do I appear as though a candidate that might be interviewed for this position? And he or she is probably going to say, yes, I think you do. At which point you'll say, great. Now, what are the next steps in this process? How soon will you be contacting people for an interview? Because now you've got a timeline. And instead of you just dishing out information, you are creating an opportunity for them to speak to you and say, what would you suggest moving forward for myself um, to make sure that I'm able to get an interview? And who's the hiring manager? Can you share the hiring manager's name? Will you be the person that will be doing the interviews? So those are all valid questions that you can ask. And the more information that you can glean and the more you can get them to answer questions, the more you're building rapport. Then please, please, please don't leave the table without a business card or contact information. And write notes on that card because you think you're going to remember everything there is to remember about that person and about that interaction. But the truth of the matter is, you won't. Because at the end of the day, A, you're exhausted, and B, you've been through a lot of conversations. Oh. Uh, would you be able to write down these questions? This will be sent out. It's probably going to be recorded, so I would think the questions will be in there. So then, remember I told you we'd be sharing some more information about getting your name out there again? So the final step in this big process is you want to, excuse me, send a follow-up to them. Now, notice I said critical final step in your application, send an email or a snail mail. Why did I say that? Because everybody under the sun is going to be emailing them. If you can get a name and address and mail it a hard copy thank you note for thank you for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. I was particularly interested in the fact that blah blah blah, whatever you discussed with them, right? As you might remember, I have some security experience and a lot of customer service experience. I'd love to put that to work for your team. All right. So, including something that you discussed, because now if I'm coming back to work and I've got this thank you letter, note, whatever, and it doesn't really have to be a big old long letter, it can be a handwritten note inside of a blank card, right? But something that now puts your name in front of me a fourth time and it says, wow, you took time out of your day to write something and go to the post office and mail it, as opposed to the 52 people that emailed. You can also email um, and say, I just was following up to make sure that you were able to get the electronic version of my resume into your system. So then, in whatever communication you do, whatever follow up you have, let them know that you're planning on being in touch again. And so maybe they shared with you interviews wouldn't start for a minimum of 2 weeks. Or maybe they say, we're trying to fill this job tomorrow. Whatever they told you, you make sure that you put your follow up information within their timeline. So if they say, we're trying to fill this position ASAP, then you'll say, I'll be in touch with you no later than next Friday to follow up. Or if they say we won't be interviewing for at least 2 weeks, say, thank you. I know that you said you'd be starting interviews within 2 weeks. I'll be in touch within the next 15 days. And then follow them on social and LinkedIn because now you have their name, you have their company, and you have the position that's being applied for. So go out there on LinkedIn or some social and follow them. If they're on Instagram, follow them. Anything that they post about their major league team, comment on it or like it, right? Because now you're starting to gain traction. So now your name's popping up again, popping up again. So do you see the value in doing that? I know it seems like a lot of work, but if there's a job you really want, it is so worth the extra work. The other thing is to when you're on social, is there a chance that you know somebody who worked there previously or works there now? Um, that would be okay. Sorry, I was reading a comment. That would be very beneficial if you know someone who used to work there or works there now. Because if they left on good terms and they were in a nice position, right? um, it's okay to use their name if you ask them. Ask them first. Never throw somebody's name on the table if you have not told that person that you're going to utilize their name. Happened to me when I was first starting to work. Someone that I was not particularly thrilled about used my name as a reference in an interview. And then they actually came back and checked me for a reference on that person. And it put me in a really tough spot. So just make sure that you are, in fact, you have permission to use that person's name. What questions do we have at this point in time? So here's some things that you don't want to do. Do not show up late. I know it's tempting to like roll in the last few minutes, but if you get there and there's a really long line at all the tables for the people that you really seriously want to talk to, you're not going to be able to get up to their table and talk to them. And so you want to show up on time. um, don't talk to everyone. Not everyone has a job that you are going to be qualified for or interested in. So if you're dropping a resume at every table, it's clogging their system and it's a waste of your time. And don't overpack. So what I mean is You need to have your hands free to grab business cards, to shake hands, to hand them a resume. So you want to take one small file folder with plenty of resumes in it, um, one pen, one ink pen, right? A blank piece of paper so that you can write any notes, and make sure that your file folder has a pocket in it so that you can keep track of those business cards, right? But you don't want to show up with a briefcase. You don't want to show up with a backpack. You don't want to show up with all of those cumbersome things and then have to dig through them to get a resume out. So you want to be able to quickly and efficiently hand them a resume, take their business card, write any notes that you have. Um, and don't drop and go, because it's just, there's no way that that is valuable for you, and it's not valuable for them, because they now have resumes they have to log in their system, and you weren't qualified for any of the jobs that they had, or you weren't a good fit, or you weren't even interested, because you also don't want someone following up with you that works for a company that you would never work for, even if you are qualified, right? And there are certain companies that you just don't want to work for. And if that's the case, then don't drop an application or a resume at their table. They don't deserve your time if they're not a company you would want to work with. Um, is the HR rep the best person to contact about a job? They can be. Again, the bigger the company, the less they're going to know about the job. But it's a good place to start because they have the basics. They know when the job's going to be filled. They know when they're going to start interviewing. They know they can answer questions like, how many interviews will I need to go through? Some places I have heard of some horrendous interview processes that include like 6 or 8 interviews. Um, so I just find that it is a good, HR is a good place to start with the information. And if they don't have it, ask them, can you share with me who I should be speaking to? Right? Um, they'll, if they're able to give you the information, they will. Um, oh, definitely give them the resume. You don't have to give them a business card, but you want to gather a business card from them. Um, Limited work experience to help me stand out. Absolutely. Volunteer experience is huge because you did that on your own time. That was, you didn't get paid for that volunteer time, right? And so if you have limited experience, again, go back to those competencies. Now, when I say competencies, here's what I want you to understand. They are the things that keep people from being successful. So their communication skills, that's a competency. You might have limited work experience, but you might be an excellent writer. And if you're applying for a copywriting job somewhere, perfect. If anyone with really good critical thinking skills, so if you are able to solve problems on your own and you enjoy challenges, share that. If you are really good at being a team member and you let's say you have limited work experience, but you were on a softball team for 6 years, right? That takes a lot of team skills. So those are things that you can pull up to the table and say, this is what you need to know about me. Don't focus on what you don't have, focus on what you do have, right? uh, If you don't have a high school diploma, can you present your certificate attendance? I assume that means your GED, and absolutely you can. A GED is the same as a high school diploma. So don't get freaked out that you don't have an actual diploma that you walk down the aisle for. You finished your high school education through a GED. Um, and they aren't going to ask for that until proof of that, and I would still say you are a high school graduate if you got your GED. Um, I was recently told I was overqualified. Do you have tips for navigating this? Why might a company not want to hire me if I have too much experience? There's a couple of reasons. The first reason is that they're afraid you're going to leave, right? But here's the here's a news flash: people are leaving all the time, whether they have experience or not. What I would say to them is, I understand that I may have been overqualified for this position, but this is what I bring to the table, and this was why I was interested in this specific position. Um, Also, keep in mind that hired does not mean retained. They may have filled that job, but that person might not start. They might quit after the first month and they're looking again, right? And so the other thing that you can do is follow up with them and say, okay, you felt as though I was all overqualified for this particular position. Is there another position in your organization that you feel I would be better qualified for? Again, they might not have that job open right now. So let's say you applied to be a payroll clerk and you had been a payroll manager previously. Your goal was actually to step back and stop being a manager. And it's okay for you to say that. I don't want to manage people anymore. That's not something I want to do, which is why I applied for this job. Um, so in that case, it's okay to acknowledge that you are stepping back, because all growth does not have to be upward growth. It can be lateral growth. And you can be an extremely valuable employee because you have a breadth of experience in the company, not necessarily that you manage the organization. I hope that answered your question. All right. So, more questions. We got done a little early. I am here for you. And I am here to answer whatever questions that you want to throw at me, because in my 25 years, I've probably heard it or seen it. Oh, yeah. Anxiety about speaking to employers. And here's what I need you to understand. The person and I can say this because my daughter suffers from crazy anxiety. So, the thing that I want you to understand is the person on the other side of the table needs you as much as you need them. They are just a person, and they have been tasked with finding someone to fill a job. So, you just need to wipe your hands off because you know your hands are sweating, right? Take a deep breath. Make sure that you have practiced your sales pitch, your little intro about who you are and why you're applying. And then, give them the opportunity to ask you questions. Because if you were going into an interview, they would be asking all the questions, right? Um, so give them the opportunity, because then it takes the onus off of you to be speaking all the time. So give them the opportunity to ask you questions. And who knows more about you than you? No one, right? So be confident, not just in your skills, but in who you are as a person, because you are going to meet employers that are looking for exactly who you are. Should I add the recruiters on LinkedIn? Yes, absolutely. I don't know that I would contact them on LinkedIn about applications. I would not. I would follow them. And when you request to follow them, send a message that said, "It was so nice to meet you at the job fair the other day. Can't wait to follow you here." Oh, only working remotely. Well, yes, you should communicate that, because you don't want them considering you to hire up into a position that's going to require you to be there, right? And so it's okay to walk up and ask them, "I'm interested in remote work. What do you have available?" And put it on them, right? Let them tell you if they have something or if they don't have anything. And also, if they say, yes, we hire for remote positions, you, it's good idea these days to ask a qualifying question. And that qualifying question would be, do you consider remote work to also include some time in the office? Because lately they don't seem to understand the difference between hybrid and remote. So if they require you to be in the office for a certain number of days every week or month or year, that's actually hybrid. So it is okay to let them know I'm looking for remote position. I didn't see anything. Maybe you didn't see anything on their website, right? Or you did see a job on their website and it would be a perfect fit for remote. And you should say to them, I applied to this job. I'm interested in working remotely, and I think this would be a good fit for a remote position. Um, and see what they say. Red flags to look out for when evaluating employers. The first red flag is, does the person that you are speaking with represent the company in a manner that they are telling you online that their culture promotes, right? Um, the other thing is, when you are applying for um, with employers and they have a ton of openings in one department, that might be telling you something. All right. So if you are applying for a job as a phlebotomist at a health center and they have 5 phlebotomy openings, that could tell you something about the manager. And it's okay to ask them, say, I noticed you had a large amount of openings in XYZ department. Can you share with me what caused that? Maybe they'll just say we're having a hard time recruiting people into those positions. And maybe they'll say, well, the manager left and a lot of people left with them, or who knows what you'll hear, right? But those are the sorts of things that you want to pay attention to. Salary conversations really should not happen at the job fair. And if it comes up, ask them. You don't want to ask them what the position pays. If they ask you what kind of salary are you looking for, say I can be open. What is the range for this position? They don't have to tell you exactly what it's going to pay. So, but don't let them put the onus on you to name a number. Say, what is the range for this position? And they can, they'll probably give you a $10,000 range. And then you can say, yes, that's within I would consider that. Okay. Or no, that's really not salary that I'm looking for. Um, what to wear? Business casual is fine as long as it is clean and pressed and neat, right? No stains, no. Um, Business casual is fine. So if you have a nice polo shirt and a pair of slacks, um, you know, put that on, put your belt on, clean up your shoes, you're good to go. Benefits to attending a job fair if I'm not really looking for a job. Network, yes. You can absolutely network at a job fair. And depending on who you're looking to meet, if you're looking to meet a bunch of HR people, that's a great place to network. If you are looking to promote your business to larger companies, it's also a great way to network. However, do not, they're there for a specific reason, which is to find employees. And so I would say that you really want to not promote your business there. You can collect business cards and you can follow up with them later and say, I saw you were represented at the job fair. This is who I am and this is what I do. And I thought maybe you'd be interested. But giving them a elevator speech about your business in hopes of getting them to do business with you, this is not the appropriate place to do that. But certainly you can grab information and pamphlets and whatever you can to take back with you and say, okay, I'm going to follow up with them in this manner. No, no handouts for this session, but again, it will be made available, Jamie said. Looking for a job, but I have a small business. Can I work both into the conversation? How would I approach an employer I don't want a job with? Don't approach an employer that you don't want a job with. Don't waste your time. Um, Yes, you can work both into a conversation. And here's how you do that because you may very well be looking for a part time job, right? And so you go up and you say, I saw you had this opening. I am interested in this position. I love the fact that it's part time and it's XYZ days. I do have a small business um, that I own, and so part time is perfect for me. And so that's how you work that in. Uh, No, I am not a fan of deleting or I am not a fan of a resume that is not in chronological order. I like to be able, and that could just be my head, right? Some formats are the top will say sales experience, and they'll list their three jobs where they did sales, and then below that it'll say, um, restaurant experience and it'll list the three jobs that they had there. I find that very hard to follow because I want to see where you've been, what you were doing. Maybe you move back and forth between, a couple of different industries at any given point in time. I just, as a recruiter, I appreciate a chronological resume. Um, oh no, two-page resume is fine. Three, four, five, not unless you are an executive. Uh, Diversity initiatives are genuinely impactful. How can I do that at a job fair? Save that. Save that for the interview process. But keep in mind that if they are online professing that they appreciate diversity in their workforce, and you show up there and there's not a diverse face in front of you, that's saying something, right? Yes, you can share some of your experiences while you're at the job fair, but here's the thing you want to keep in mind. They have a ton of people to see, so 5 minutes or less, unless they are asking more questions. Yes, you can. Here's how I handle the question of dates on your resume. You want to include the dates on your resume, but your resume should not go back more than 15 years. So they're not going to see, that you were working in 1972. Advice for folks with invisible disabilities. The job fair is not the time for you to deal with that, right? If it's going to if it's going to be an issue for the employment of, based on the job that you're interested in, you can ask questions about it. So, excuse me, you can ask questions such as, is this a really high stress position? So they don't need to know that you suffer from PTSD or you have anxiety, and you just want to ask, is this a high stress position? Month and year, start and end date. um, When they're checking references, they like to have the month and the year. On mine, I don't do months. I couldn't possibly remember. I'm old. I couldn't possibly remember the months that I started. So you can say fall of 19 or fall of 2010 until spring of 2014, right? You don't have to make it. That's close enough. This is an interesting question. Been in your current position 15 years and own your own small business for 17 years. Should I go back further with a particular number of previous positions? No, here's what I would do. List those two positions and then say additional experience And you don't even have to list the jobs or where you were. Just say, additional experience and address it by industry, maybe, additional experience in the insurance industry or additional experience in the accounting firms or whatever. Reasonable accommodation should not actually be addressed until such time as you're in an interview. Sure. Job coaches are a great thing. I happen to be one. Um, but if you mean job coaches as far as someone who comes in and works with you one on one during your training period or your work period, um, I don't know that it's necessary to address that unless you're concerned. If it's a job where you're not sure a job coach would fit, then you might want to bring it up. Say, I do have a job coach that comes with me. Is that a problem for you? But don't put it on the table if you don't have to, right? Because it might be a non-issue. How do you create a narrative whenever you have a wide variety of experiences? It's entirely possible that that wide variety of experiences has a thread running through it, such as, let's see, I'd have to think about that, but maybe it is giving back to the community, right? So if you are in philanthropy, homeless services, elder services, those are community-based industries, and so that's your thread, right? So you might not be able to tie all of them together. Not sure what you did with the graphic design business. Maybe you offered it up to small businesses. I don't know. In that case, you were giving back to the community as well. Spot On the spot interviews at the job fair. It happened to me last time. Oh, that's interesting. I would always be prepared. And absolutely, if they say, "Do you have time for an interview?" Sure, I do. And if you are nervous, say, "Can you give me 5 minutes? I need to use the restroom or go get a water or whatever, and I'll be right back. Where should I meet you?" That way you're not caught off guard and you have time to breathe, right? I don't think you need to disclose your disability unless you think it's going to hinder the position. Wow, you guys, you were amazing. I hope I was able to answer every question that you had. Keep in mind that you are welcome to email me if you have further questions. My name is Myra Quick, MyraQuick, and my email is mquick at fastforwardlearn.com. Jamie, what do you need from me?
I think that that covers everything. I think that was super helpful and really informative. So thank you so much, Myra. For those of you who have seen my email in chat, I'm Jamie. I'm the Chamber's Events Project Manager. You can feel free to reach out to me for the presentation as well as the recording of this webinar, which will be on YouTube. And if you have any questions about the job fair, we look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Thank you again, everyone.